Hey, I would really like to share my thoughts on AI because it seems that everything I do is highly affected by AI as a tool, you could say. There's a thing that we can, uh, there's a resemblance back in the day when I was in an advertising business back in the day when they still used film where you were cutting film bits and putting things up manually to make an printed advertise or advert. Yeah, I'm a bit rusty with this thing, and those who didn't embrace the new digital tools just lost their jobs. The printing press changed to digital, and it really disrupted the whole industry quite a bit. And now we have come to the point where this massive new tool called AI, artificial intelligence, within just a few months have proven itself to be developing at a pace that I can't remember I've seen anything develop before. And a natural response to a machine that can suddenly sort of make music is, of course, the same old battle as between the old school printing press and digital layout on a computer and printing directly from it. It actually took quite a few years before the actual printing caught up with the digital layout. We still had to print in 4 colors, and that made it really challenging to produce a precise printed brand color, like especially blue. And for some reason in Denmark, a lot of big brands really enjoys blue as their sort of very specific brand color. And back in the day with the CMYK printing, that could be a challenge, especially because it differed if you printed on bags or like plastic or different materials, which really had a big effect on it. So it was not easy, and it took quite a lot of years before printers caught up. But today, because it's purely a digital realm, it seems like AI doesn't need to catch up because it's a mirror and a reflection of what actually exists, especially in the musical world. But it chooses often sort of what would you say, a soft middle of the road thing. You really have to poke it a lot with your prompts to make it do exactly like you want. But I found some ways to utilize AI as an actual really useful tool to me that, I have melodies and stuff in my head that I like to express. And sometimes it just becomes a very short idea where I just play an acoustic and maybe have a singer chip in, and it just becomes a snippet that's just floating around in your archive somewhere. So because of the pressure I feel directly from this whole new world of AI, I thought I would sort of try to embrace it and learn how I can shorten the path from idea to actual production, where it actually goes out in the real world and can be shared in the real world. And then you are thinking, and how would I monetize it? And monetization seems to be more and more difficult by doing only your prime craft. You have to be a sort of a public you have to become a brand, and you have to learn all these things that you might not have skill for, like producing your own videos and that. And you might have seen some of my early videos that are definitely better produced than this one, because this is just a phone. But I thought the message maybe were more important in this case with AI, especially because it affects my photography quite a bit. So I tried to embrace it and see how could I actually just use it, like find some old pictures and see what if I actually had the means to place this in an environment where the production costs were really high. And then you can just do it by putting in your own picture and then saying, could you put this person in an environment that is like this and that? And then what I noticed is that it's not all people who really enjoy to be sort of manipulated in that way, although it's not really more manipulation than I did back in the day when I took the pictures. It was just, it just resembles that if I had way more money to take those pictures back then, I could place them in the environment I wanted, and I could also light them in a way I wanted. And so I tried to attack that, but I ended up using myself, my own face or version of it, because of all these all these regulations from EU, and also that, you know, it's not all people who respond well to being portrayed in a way that wasn't the original. And I have a mind that works pretty fast, so I don't have the, you know, okay, I have to contact this person, then we have to get some written acceptance of that I'm going to do this to these pictures and so forth. And then I was just experimenting, and then I didn't even publish the picture. I directly sent it to the person that I had put this picture through AI with. And I did that with a few people. I only had one negative response, but still, it got me thinking. So if you see some pictures on my Instagram, that is sort of a prettied up AI version of this face. It's just purely practical. I could make up some dull, non-existent figure, but I have a picture of me and just put it in, and that's it. So that was in the picture part. And I'm also looking into how you can make videos. That is still, it's not that well developed yet, but it's really moving forward at an incredible pace. And in the music side, the development is sort of subtle, because the models become better and better, and more opportunities come up. There's this very well-known Suno, and there's Ace Studio, and there's different kinds of solutions out there. And to me, I actually bought Ace Studio early last year, because I often had these issues. I couldn't really realize my own ideas for vocals. I often played them in my guitar, but I would really like to see what would happen if you actually made a song or a vocal with this synthesizer that was in Ace Studio. And then it didn't really work for me. There was other issues going on. I didn't have water in this apartment for like a long time, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. So it kind of fell back and as a priority. But then I discovered early this year that Ace Studio had updated itself. So now you could feed it, which is the way I did it, because that was a natural way for me to do it. I just fed it one of my old songs. It could be me playing a guitar and a vocalist, and we never really got to release it. And then I put it in there in a studio and prompted it to say, okay, what do you think this is? And just let it go. And out came a version of it where it automatically changed the vocalist with a male singer. I was like, interesting. It doesn't really sound that bad. And then I could, from that starting point, go into that creative prompt it wrote and change the things I didn't want it to do, but point it in another direction. And I also noticed that the more you feed it with real musical language, for now it seems to work pretty well. So I could sort of mix a quiet folk song, but have its feel be like hard funk with break on syncopes and so on, busy drums, but playing really not loud, because I like busy drums and all that. So suddenly I felt like a producer, of which a role I have played before. So it was just another way, instead of sitting in front of like Logic here and recording a whole bunch of ideas and then really not getting results that really sounded like the thing you wanted. And now you can just sit back instead and let artificial musicians listen to what you dropped in there. And then you can adjust how precise it should be and how honest it should be to the original melody and arrangement, and how much you should do guesswork. And that is actually the way I use it. So I just prompt it slightly, and then it comes up with something that's more in the direction of what I want. And then again, and until it pops up with that take where I'm like, wow, man, this is great. And I respond to music very emotionally. I have a what could you say, a neural condition that makes me highly, highly sensitive. And to avoid being overloaded in daily life, I have a filter put in front of that. I think my brain did that by itself, just to like regulate all the emotional stuff. And it literally had this logical filter in front that sort of said, is this something that it's useful to be emotional about? And the only way to figure that one out is to figure out what is the facts surrounding this particular question, where an incident happened where people really responded highly emotional. So I go through it with pure reasoning and logic and observation and nothing else, and adjust to protect my emotions, or me being extremely emotional. But when it comes to music, well, let's say this was what goes on about political stuff. I don't want to get rallied up by stuff that is based on half-truths or false information, because why would I waste all that energy being highly emotional if it's not true? I'd rather respond emotionally to something that's actually true. But when it comes to music, I don't have that filter. It's immediate. I get emotional, but it's like music to me is emotions. The drums and the bass are like it's really bodily, where the higher harmonies and other instruments becomes more like the ambient setting of the emotion. So you can have like a drive in the bottom, and you can have this ambient soothing stuff in the top, and then you have a melody to sort of shape it all off. And what I've always wanted to do in music is that I don't want that logical filter I was talking about before, that could say, oh, I don't like heavy metal, so I won't play it, or I don't like country. So those two elements will just be completely gone from any idea I have, because I have already decided mechanically what expressions I can use by saying this is out and that is out, or could be hardcore techno. That is, I'm maybe prone to say I don't want techno, but I never omit it, because there can be some elements techno could actually blend really well with what I do or with somebody in other genres do. So my thing is, I always wanted to have a really broad landscape of emotions that I could pull in and use in music. And it has been difficult to make people in real life actually go that far. You know, I could easily imagine a really ambient intro like Olafur Arnald's Icelandic jazz, folk, something ambient stuff, and then have a verse that is slightly more energetic, and then just have a full-on new metal, power blasting, hard funk chorus. Because your range and dynamics go from 0 to a gazillion, instead of you're like, okay, I have this country thing, and I have a dynamic here and here to here and here. Instead of, let's embrace the whole thing. Because new metal to me it's so powerful. And if you put a really nice pop melody on top that a song like a pop song, I like what that sounds like. And this is the first time I'd ever had the opportunity to actually produce myself into AI to be able to present to people. So they better have an idea of what the hell is it you want. Because it has been really hard to explain to someone that, yeah, I want you to play this ambient stuff, and then I want you to go into this complete, insane, super bassy, double bass drum with a funk feel. And that's a range that I haven't met a lot of musicians have. I've definitely met one, which is my old drummer, Heine Leonard, from a band we had quite a bit of success with back in the 90s. But they're few. They're really few. And if you're not like aligned on how you want a specific swing to feel, I can literally just tell. I used just a few words. I said, I want you to play this in a 6/8 swing feel, which felt different to a 6/8 shuffle or swing shuffle. I use these combinations, and then it becomes confused enough to try to do it. And when I say busy drums, I get the amount of drums that I like, and I like busy drums. I don't even play the drums myself, other than just like, it's really basic. But I really love drums, and I like busy drums. I like busy bass players. I like a lot of bottom end. And now suddenly I had a tool that didn't argue with me. It just said, sure, man. And out came these versions of my old stuff. I was completely blown away. It was like one banger after the other that just went out of this machine, and I was like, To me, this is a demo. I don't play the guitar myself. Up here, I'm in the process of doing the guitars myself, and maybe I should show this little setup, because I happen to figure out that I'm really not. I don't think I'm normal, because I like really sitting on the floor while throwing guitars around and basically behaving like a child, to engage my creativity, I guess, but I also do it when I track. So if AI came up with a great variation of one of my riffs, I'll just learn it. And the cool thing is that it's clever enough to figure out what kind of phrasing I use. So it definitely phrases in a way where I can just, oh, that's a cool variation. I can just play it. I don't even need to rehearse it, because it's just in my fingers already. It's the same. It's just like plucked it out from another place in maybe a solo, and that's that's a movement I'm used to. So it's much easier. You say, okay, there's a part that I wanna swap the guitars. And other places they're just so bang on. I'm like, that sounds like me. So, and also it comes up with stuff that definitely do not sound like me. But if it's a great idea, like, that's a great little phrasing within that solo. I think I'll learn that part. So suddenly I realized I have to be a really good musician to keep up with AI in the sense of it being, it grooves really well all the time. It's always really tight. It swings in the right way. It's human enough to, you even sometimes hear some errors, a guy losing his stick or somebody walking in, opening a door on the other side of the room. It sounds like that, and that is actually some flaws I actually like, because it makes it really credible. If you ask a sax player to be really breathy, you can hear the sound from the valves. Sometimes it still sounds a bit artificial, and also it's when it tries to emulate guitars, it also have tendencies to fluctuate in its timbre. So it's the way it sounds sort of shifts through a solo. But I don't really care much about it, because I take that out and I put my own in, and take the good ideas and the nice phrasings, and then replace the bad ones with my own, which I've maybe thought were better. So for me, it has become an extraordinarily quick way to test my ideas, and it works really well when I feed it with my own finished songs, or even just a little idea. Even just an iPhone recording in the room can pick up stuff that I didn't pick up initially with my own ears. So I see this AI as a tool. The whole monetizing thing is not my field. I have no idea how you actually make money. It's not a great ability I ever had. So I guess I have to find someone who's good at that, or figure it out. Not a talent of mine, but the tool itself as something where you can say, I have this idea, this is an original idea. Dump it in there and make it hyper precise, but it comes out as a great production, because some of the productions are really, really nice, really good. Sounds great. Sometimes something happens in there where it sort of degrades in the end, and something weird happens. And then there's a lot of tools so you can like swap it out, but then it comes up with another idea that you didn't want. You want exactly that one. And then it becomes a bit tricky. And then I'm like, I don't really need that part, because I can just record the stuff myself, because I'm a musician. So, and in case of drums and bass, I do play the bass quite often, but sometimes I don't really have the, what do you call it? I get lazy, And what AI has proven to be extremely good at is as a drum machine, and as an AI bass player. And they do exactly what you tell them. But with the added freedom, like it feels much like being in front of a real band and having super competent musicians who can play any style on the planet. And in one go, you could say, could we try to make this like a complete gospel version of this, with a huge choir and stuff. And then it comes up with these amazing gospel choirs. And then you say, but what would happen if you have like a funky feel, but with like a gent attitude? And then it makes something that's completely different. But if you mix them, if you pull that gospel thing, then I just add in the prompt, try to add a lot of a big gospel choir that adds to the dynamics. And then out comes incredible mashup of genres and styles. that comes out as I had envisioned stuff, plus the added extras that I didn't think of in that. And then I have a tune that is so finished that it is perfectly usable as a demo. And then I can send that tune to someone who sings like that, or someone who plays like that drummer, and say, how would you think about recording this and then playing it live? And why wouldn't I present something that is so finished that it perfectly describes my vision of stuff? And then, of course, allowing musicians to say, you know what, your sound is yours. Your phrasing is yours. This is the intro, this is the beat, this is the feel, and here's a lot of suggestions you can use for little fills and stuff. But you can do your own stuff if you want to. You don't have to follow this like slavic or precisely. And then out comes, a recording where you have to live up to how good that AI is. It has to be as good, or else it would feel weird to be a bad cover band of an AI version. And then you just have to be a better musician. And I actually like that. And I also had some sound ideas. I talked about, these guitars. When AI tries to present the sound of a guitar, it fluctuates. It has become better, and especially when you remix stuff, you can sort of provoke it to sound more like you. But I think I lost track there. Yeah, my mind just drifted off. It's about the sound. Yeah, now I know. It is. I really was a bit annoyed with the way it sometimes drifted off, and sometimes it had this weird effect where it, in the end of a long singing notes, added a fuzz effect, as if it was in there parallel. It sounded kind of weird, but then I thought it actually sounds pretty good, because I'm a bit annoyed with wah pedals. I don't use them much. If I ever use it, I just stay away from wah pedals. And then I thought, this sounds actually like an extension of its timbre. So with this machine, that little thing, you can actually do it. And I have a suspicion that these AI developers have been researching these machines, because the guitar sounds that comes out are easily reproducible with like this quad cortex meaning. It's easy. And then I thought maybe I should add some in a parallel, add this little fuzz. And I experimented a little bit with adding that fuzz in with the pedal. So in the end of a singing note, it could add that extra dimension. And it works. I picked up a trick, a sound trick from the flaws of AI, and reproduce it. And it actually reminds me a bit about when the first drum machines came. The drummers, they were drifting quite a bit more in the 70s. Not that that was bad at all. But then came the drum machines, and suddenly all the pop bands had to play after a click to align to that drum beats. And everything just became stiff. And then the live drummers, started to play more like the machines. Like even drum and bass drummers are now a thing, where when you heard that the first time, you just said, you can't play that on real drums. And now people play drum and bass so good that you don't even want to use a drum machine. You just call that guy. But then AI came along, and now it works. But now if you want to play that stuff live, you have to call a drummer who can actually play that stuff. So I think actually the AI thing in will bounce off us as musicians forth and back. But I think we have to embrace it as a tool, a production tool. I mean, here's another analogy. Back in the day when you bought a car, way back in the 1900s, you had to adjust the timing of the explosion with the lever. So the faster you went, you had to adjust the timing when the spark plug ignites. And the pedal arrangements was a bit off, not like today. It took a little bit of a specialist to drive it. This is the Ford Model T. You have to get instructions before you can drive that one. And later it became easier and easier. That was manual gear, it was synchronized. It just became easier to use. And then the automatic came out. They were like not good in the beginning, but became better and better, just like AI. And then nowadays it's kind of odd to drive around with a manual for some reason. Some enthusiasts still like it, and a bit like, snobby towards people who don't drive a manual. But even I, who has been in that camp, not because I don't care what people use, but I just like the manual because it's easier to control, easier to engage. But then later I had a car who had this double clutch instead, and that was then I could be manual and automatic and everything in between. So I can drive just by getting in the car and just push a pedal. And now with the electrics, you can get in the car and tell it where to go. But it gets the job done. It's only a matter if you like the process. And now we have to get used to a different process because AI. This is not AI. This is just my logic. But even logic have updated itself to now embrace AI because it's a tool of the future. And we can be proud and everything. And I don't think it's a threat to people. Not people like Robert Massat, who comes up with the most amazing riffs. That dude is a riff master, and he's incredibly tasteful with his tone. I have so much respect and regard for that guy. He seems to be more skeptical towards AI. But I would say that if you are a musician and a producer and really want to use it to your advantage, I will see it as an easier tool. It's an automatic instead of an old manual where you have to adjust the timing when you drive, depending on the revs of the engine, so it's just, instead of all that, all the stuff from getting into that car and to where it should go, all that in between is theater. And it's all, what are you capable of? And it requires talent and skill to be in that process. But suddenly somebody says, we don't need that process. Here's a car, it goes itself. It does the exact same thing as the manual one that required a lot of energy and a lot of skill. And then suddenly we don't need that because you can just go there. And then it's left to the enthusiasts and the skilled people to still use their skill if they think it has any value. And I definitely in music think it does. It's just that the demo process and production process, AI will be extremely helpful, also because the landscape of musicianship have changed, where you don't, making an album and putting it out is more for like the old process guys who still likes vinyl. Vinyl is emotional in my mind, It's a great experience, but the sound is not up to par, and there's too much noise. And but some people really enjoy that, and I'm like, it's the same people who enjoy riding a Ford Model T, or like me, a race car with a manual. That's extremely enjoyable if you have the skills, but it's not super practical. It doesn't really do that thing where you get from A to B in a hurry, because today it's not like albums anymore. It's like you have to put out a new song as frequently as possible to get the momentum up, and to get all the algorithms to respond correctly so it lifts your channel up, which mine has gone down because I haven't been active. But actually, I think that this whole AI stuff have put me into a position where I can now present my material to people who immediately respond to it and can say, yeah, man, let's do that. So I have two things going on right now, one with the male singer and one with the female singer. And for, from the demos we already made, damn, that's some good stuff. That is some great stuff. It just pushed me to be a better producer, and it pushed me to be better at engineering, sound engineering, and pushes me to be a better guitar player and bass player. I'm not becoming a better drummer, but I'm not having to argue with the drummer. I can just tell it precisely, I need this kind of swing, and it also understands the DAW language of swing. So you could use the terms from like Logic, like you could say, I want this straight 4/4 to be played with a 16B swing. I have experienced that it responds to it in the correct way. It could be, I think it does. And I do think that the people who made AI and make guitar sound have researched these machines more than they have actually researched real life amps and such. So I think that's why it's so easy to replicate these new sounds that AI have a tendency to drift toward. That's a functional device to actually do that. So, but that's my thoughts on AI. I really, really think that if we don't want to lose track with a increasingly quick world and a fast world, we don't lose our ability to sit down in a group and come up with a song and record it the old way. There's absolutely nothing that stops us from doing that. We can do it all day long. And also, machines still can't replace us when we play live. That's a very special experience. And people who visit a DJ concert, he can manipulate in certain ways, but live music, especially in a club setting or small arenas, are just, just take any techno head who appreciates music in general and push him into a church and let him hear the choir sing. It just grabs you in a different way. And now I don't know, if you're like hyper emotional and sensitive like me, you really respond. It's like a tsunami of emotion, where I noticed that like normal neurodivergent people have a thicker skin, so they don't respond as emotional to music as I do. And I've met a few people who had the same response to music as I do, and it has been absolutely incredible sitting there and just listening to music for hours on end, and with a person that have the same response, but they're rare, it seems. So, but anyways, that was a bit of a detour there. But to me, AI has come in with a lot of opportunity and some pressure to become better, but I like that pressure. I like to be forced to be a better guitar player. I think that is super inspiring, especially when he produces new ideas. So yeah, and excuse me, I look a bit tired. I've just been through the flu. They've taken on a different level of aggression since the COVID. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter, but so I've been knocked down hard this time. But I'm better now. I just look like shit. Yeah. So no matter what, that was my thoughts on AI. I thought that I wanted to share this perspective on AI and what it is, because I feel it's important for us to not be left behind because of pride. I don't think that's productive for anyone. So us as musicians should just go on and just feed this new animal with our ideas and grow, figure out new ways to survive. You know, everyone has to figure out new ways to survive. Somebody great at playing a system and somebody great at playing an instrument. So we have to make the best of it. And my default, whenever the world presents itself in a way that is really difficult to overcome, I always default right back into music. It's just such an integrated part of me that is my default. And then, you know, photography comes on top of that. But I will always default back to music. So yeah, peace, love, and good happiness stuff. By all means, we need it.